Jodi Hildebrandt's Connections is still on Spotify. Jodi Hildebrandt and Frankie were doing classes and courses teaching people how to refrain from distortion and raise their kids and be nice people. Well, we see how that ended up. I've picked out a couple of the episodes that literally have me saying who said what, and we're going to talk about them in today's video. So I'm still going really strong with Hungryroot. They've really been coming in great during this time of changing sofa headquarters. A lot of you probably know that we're in the process of moving and doing all of that. Now, as many as you probably know, moving sucks, right? Okay. And I found myself literally just dialing out, going the path of least resistance, eating whatever I felt like eating. And it was starting to show around the old midsection. However, that's when I got my Hungryroot delivery in and was like, you know what, Paul, you're going to chill. Instead of dialing out, we're going to dial in the Hungryroot and start getting rid of this little tire. Okay. Now, not only do they make food prepping, planning, all that super easy, but the shopping is super easy as well. And they make the time in the kitchen even less. Their meals, their recipes take less than 15 minutes to cook, okay? And it's like real home-cooked food. So whatever diet that I'm aiming at, or you for that matter, they've got you covered, okay? I just tell them my preferences, and then they personalize and fill up my cart with recommendations. And as time goes on with the stuff that you're getting, they learn your preferences, and it makes it that much easier. Now, variety is a key ingredient to me keeping my diet on point and interesting for me. And Hungryroot scores an A in that department. So whether it's one person or your whole family, Hungryroot is all about options, okay? They've got smoothies, snacks, salad kits, you name it, supplements, whatever it is, they've got it. I mean, just look at this stuff. Now, another major bonus to Hungryroot's food is that it contains no high fructose corn syrup or artificial sweeteners, preservatives, any of that. They source premium meat, premium seafood, and this ensures that they're like free from hormones, antibiotics, all that stuff. Okay. Another huge bonus to Hungryroot is how customizable they are and how easy they are to work with. I cannot express that enough. Literally, it is like the grocery store coming to your doorstep however often you want it, and it is amazing. And in addition to all that, they're hooking the Sofa Squad up. Okay. Take advantage of this exclusive Sofa Squad offer. Alright. For a limited time, you get 40% off your first box. Plus, you get a free item in your box for life. That's right, for life. So click the Hungryroot link below or go to hungryroot.com. Use code SofaSquad. That's going to be 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life at hungryroot.com with code SofaSquad. Hello, Sofa Squad, and welcome back to the sofa. There's a sofa back there somewhere. I'm standing in front of it. I hope y'all are doing well. My name's Paul if you're new to the channel, and if you're not new, guess what? My name's still Paul. Y'all, today we're going to be revisiting 8 Passengers, Frankie, Jodi Hildebrandt. Somebody told me in the comment section, they're like, you know that Connections is still on Spotify, all the classes. I was like, take my money, right? Slapping my card on the table. It doesn't cost money either. That's the beautiful thing about it. So I went and looked, and sure enough, hundreds of episodes. Here's the thing. Way back when this case was first going on, I feel like a couple of them I did reaction videos to, but then I started listening to it. I was like, well, let me just listen to the title sounds cringy. Let me listen to this one. Well, that's all it took. You already know what happened, right? Down the rabbit hole I went. The difference now is that we have the context of what we know, but especially from Sherry Frankie's book, as well as a new docuseries that came out. So when I was listening to some of these, I was like, oh, I know exactly what she's talking about now, because Sherry talked about this in her book, but this is like Ruby's version, right? So what I want to do, and if people like this, I'll go through more of them as we can, like as long as they're still up or whatever. I want to go through 2. One of them is the one that Jody did. And then the second one after that is the one that Ruby did, okay? So keep that in mind. You'll be able to tell whether they'll introduce themselves at the end of, or the beginning of it, or whatever. You can tell the transition. So what I'm going to do is we're going to listen to it together, and I'm just going to offer my commentary. Keep in mind, okay, I ain't no doctor, I ain't no lawyer, I ain't no fancy credentials, stuff like that, all right? Only credentials I got up in here is the sofa and my sass. Boom. So just know that I'm just making this, these are just my opinions and that type of stuff, right? So keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and jump off into the first one, and that's going to be Jody's podcast.
Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Jody Hildebrandt. Welcome to another episode of the Connections Podcast, where we help you create joy in your life and in your relationships.
So, you heard that, right? We saw how that ended. Not well, okay? So keep in mind that this is what they're doing. Also keep in mind, people are still paying for this stuff, okay? Right? Just saying, okay? Let's keep going.
I love the Rings of Responsibility podcast. We are trying to implement the principles with our children. My oldest, 14 boy, has a particular phone, and she says mostly it's locked up except for all the extras, whatever that means. And he has shown irresponsibility with it. We are labeling it more as a kid phone and not his phone, but letting him take it to places like his farm job, which I understand probably needs to be cut until he shows more responsibility. Good job, Mom.
Now, keep in mind what we're listening to is Jody is reading a question that somebody wrote in. So this is the predicament, and Jody is going to offer her, whatever. Now, notice here at the beginning, at the very end, she's like, good job, Mom. Good job. Keep that in mind, because we're going to wrap back around to that towards the end of this. So just keep that part in mind. Okay, here we go.
And to church and seminary so he can use the Gospel Library app. This is my main hesitancy to get rid of it for good. The scriptures are on his phone. He really hates the idea of going to seminary and church with paper scriptures, because no one else has them.
Well, that really burnt her grits. So you can already hear it in Jody's voice. The paper, nobody else has it. But okay, so I've already listened to this once, obviously, to cut out the pieces I wanted to talk about. But even when I was listening to it at first, you already knew. Right now, I was like, oh, I could see the look on her face. This sent her over the edge. But she also was like, here's my end. Here's my grift, right? The entrance to the grift.
He says he would rather just not go if he has to bring paper scriptures. But I feel like he needs to not have a phone. At all. Okay. Has anyone experienced this, and can someone give me some validation and or ideas? So, Mom?
Okay. So right there, here's the predicament. The kid has a phone. He's 14. He, is being irresponsible with it, right? You heard all the things she said, okay? So this is the part right here. This is what Jody seems to be able to do and like. Now, also, before we keep going, keep in mind, and I'll give Jody this. Many people said she's really good. She's confident sounding. She's this and that. Yes, Jody can sound like she knows what she's talking about, especially when we compare her to Ruby coming up next, here in a few minutes after we listen to this. So just keep in mind, it's like, if you were in the realm of believing this stuff, right? Who do you think is selling it better? Jody has this air of confidence that Ruby lacks. Ruby still talks to everyone like they are a completely incapable 5-year-old. Even though Jody does that too, it's like she's been around this block more than once. So let's keep going.
Way to go. Way to be awake. Way to be present. Way to recognize what's happening with your son, that he is not showing up humbly. How do I know that? Because you just talked about his aggression towards you, towards other people, like, I'm not going to do this if you don't let me have that. That's aggressive behavior. He's not being responsible because he's using the phone, the kid's phone, in a way that you told him not to use it. And so you're right, he needs to lose that privilege. And it's not just about losing the privilege, it's about recognizing my child is telling me and showing me through his choices that he isn't able to manage this. This isn't about a punishment. This isn't about, he's in trouble. It's about recognizing the verbal and nonverbal cues that our children send to us about what they can manage and what they cannot manage.
Okay, key words here, aggression and manage. Now, I would say this, what she is talking about, the basis, and this is specifically is about a phone, right? How to manage the phone, moderate, you might say, this, that, and the other. The whole way that Jody comes at, especially children, in that they are like little demons or something. And I mean, like sometimes we'll make joke, oh yeah, they're a little, you know what, yeah, or a little demon or whatever, but in a joking way or something, right? There might have been a little holy terror that day. But Jody, I think, believes this. I think she honestly, deeply rooted, hates children. So this whole part about taking something that's very normal, think about if you have kids. I don't have kids. I have family members that do. I just have puppies. Not the same thing, right? Think about, or even yourself, when you're entering those teenage years, I mean, really gross time, right? But what Jody's talking about, I'm like, this is just normal kid behavior. And yes, as the adult, you need to teach the child to moderate and manage, if you will. But this aggressiveness, this manipulation, we'll get into that too here in a minute. Again, looking back through it and seeing where we ended up, I'm like, oh, I see how she's like so easily is walking these parents down this line. Now, in a minute, like towards the end of this podcast, we'll get to how she circles it all back around to money. Remember, I always follow the money, right? Especially with people like Jody and Ruby, but especially Jody. It's always about this money. So that's already starting in on the child is aggressive, the child is this, the child is that. And it's almost like, are there other ways we can look at this? Because I think that this dilutes, like, say a child who truly is aggressive and might have some true behavioral issues versus a kid that's being a kid that wants what they want, right? And they just need to learn, you don't always get what you want, buddy. Put the phone away while we're eating dinner or whatever the case is. Let's keep going.
So this young man is saying, I'm only going to go to church or seminary if I have what I want, you know? And this child is saying, I don't want paper scriptures. So he could say, I'm not going to go to seminary unless you make me breakfast every morning, or I'm not going to go to church unless, you know, I can hang out with my friends every Friday, Saturday night. I mean, there could be some kind of negotiation indicator or tool that the child is using. It doesn't really matter what it is. The fact that they're using it means that the child has learned how to manipulate. And it sounds like he has been quasi-effective in his manipulation because he's still doing it.
Okay, now, here's a couple of things. Jody, again, manipulation, right? Now, again, real rich coming from someone like Jody, okay? But to me, the things she's describing here are completely different. It's like, you're talking about a kid with a phone, right? Who is sitting here saying, I don't want, Mom, everybody has their scriptures in the phone. I can already hear it now, right? Versus, well, I'm not going to seminary unless you do this. Vastly different, okay? Now, again, to each their own and whatnot. And this just comes down to parenting choices and how you do it. Like, whatever works in your household, right, for you, right? But the fact that someone's coming to her with this question, she's turning what I consider to be normal. Okay, we start off learning, wait a minute, I'm hungry, and then I start screaming, and the human comes in and feeds me. Okay, like, we learn these things along the way of what's acceptable, what's not. And so at the basis, yes, I get that, right? You don't want your kids to be manipulative. You don't want your kids to whatever, you know, you need to teach them to moderate phones and life and all this stuff, okay? But where she goes with it, she's already pitting this 14-year-old with something that is completely normal per se. The kids want to be on their phone. You take the phone away, they get upset. The kids want to, I'm aging myself. When I was a kid growing up, it was stuff like whatever kind of Reeboks or Nikes kids were wearing, right? Or the Nike windbreaker. You know, well, everybody has this windbreaker. You're not everybody, right? It's that basic lesson there. This is something I think everyone kind of goes through. But Jody is obviously using it as a teaching thing for content and whatnot. I get that. But also to loop people in. You'll see how she does it. So again, she's creating this person's taking the time to write to written Jody. She's, you know, okay, well, here's this, here's that. I guess what I'm getting at is she's making it way bigger, but it's also a hard pill to swallow to listen to this woman dare teach us about manipulation, distortion, anything like this when we know what was going on in her house.
So when you said, that I need to just get rid of the phone, I would 100% agree with you. Here's some validation for you. You see what's going on. You see his manipulation. You see his distortion. And I hope that you are also seeing his aggression. So you didn't use the word aggression, but the fact that he's leveraging and angling you, like if you don't, then I'm gonna, is a threat. It is an aggressive posture.
My heart broke a little bit when she said, take the phone away from the poor kid. Threatening, aggressive. Listen to the words she's using. And notice she said, you didn't use the word aggression, but that's what it is. Now remember, Jody is this revered, she is the who's of this world, right? So people are going to listen to her. So this is somebody who does not take the privilege that they hold, I guess you could say, of the spot in a healthy way. She's using it to create friction and conflict in other families where there isn't something. This could be a very simple, holistic, I don't know if the holistic's right, but like very, whatever, nice, leave it to beaver kind of vibe family lesson here to learn. But she's turning it into this evil, dark thing. Now remember, at this point, her kids don't talk to her. She doesn't got a man. Not that that matters. But you know what I'm saying. Here's the way I say it too. She doesn't got some man. You know what I'm trying to say, okay? I've been watching too much TikTok. Bad baby in Alabama drama, okay? That's just what it is. But it's like, she doesn't have, like, all these people have abandoned her, right? And she's like coming on here and essentially planting the seeds in other families for destruction.
And fill in the blank with whatever the person's being aggressive with, it still is aggressive. So excellent job, Mom. This young man, it's not about paper scriptures or scriptures on his phone. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with this young man does not have a sense of self-esteem. And how do I know that? Because he's using his phone like, I want to look like everybody else. I want to fit in. I want to be like them. Because he sees them, those other kids, as having importance, and that they seem to like him or he's valued. This is all his perception, by the way. It's the truth is not that he's more valued because he has a phone, but he has low self-confidence, which means he doesn't know who he is. He doesn't identify as a divine, worthy soul, which is who he is at the core of him.
So a couple of things here. Again, at the basis of this, I mean, I'm thinking so many examples I've seen with the family and the kids and myself and like that, where like, yeah, you want to teach kids, you need to follow people. You don't need to have that to be worthy. I get the basis of that. But again, this could be something so simple, right? Like standard life skills 101 lesson, okay? That she's making this bizarre, evil, Decepticons versus, other, Transformers kind of a thing. And it's not that serious. It's not that hardcore. But again, you heard in the beginning. Good job, mamas. Hey, mamas. That whole vibe, whatever the beginning. Keep that in mind because we're going to get to the ask here in a little bit.
And so what is he doing? He's trying to get his worth, his value, his importance from out here around him. And most kids do that. And a lot of adults do that. And kids and adults do that when they have not matured. Now, children have permission, not permission like it's okay, but just we give them more permission because they're young and they're learning. But the problem is that most of those teenagers, they don't ever mature past it. They continue to be immature in their adult years, in their 20s, in their 30s, in their 60s.
She's making it out like every adult or whatever, almost like it's just more common to see people walking up at the restaurant or whatever talking about, pardon me, excuse me, where's the people with the Louis Vuitton wallet sit? You got a section for that? That's where I need to go. Thank you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get, again, that part of like, well, they haven't matured, they haven't done this. Yeah, but you're convicting this kid already. And again, this whole thing where I'm just like, girl, like, look at what you were doing. Look at the dynamic of her partnering up in the way, the ins and outs of groups she herself would create in her classes. We've already heard from her victims talking about, well, even Kevin, talking about like in his first group, whatever class he did, where she's gassing him up in the beginning, oh, Kevin's such a good boy, but this one over here isn't. She was creating that. It's like Jody talks like, and I feel like when she was a kid, and she kind of alluded to this in some of her stuff in that book we read, God help us, she was the bullied, she was the this, and then she grew up and was able to pivot that and become the bully, become the this and that, become the one that creates otherness and all this, but then also profit by teaching against it. I mean, make it make sense. Okay.
And so each of us goes through a movement in life, or we're invited, I should say, to go through a movement where we start paying attention to the caliber of my choices. Like, what do I choose? Am I choosing to be honest, regardless of what the outcomes are? Am I willing to be responsible for what? My thoughts, my feelings, my behaviors? Am I willing to be curious, which is humble? Am I willing to be open, which is humble? Am I willing to say I chose poorly, which is humble? Am I willing to say I'm in distortion, which is humble? Literally
things that she has not done or was willing to do herself. This is what I'm talking about, the hypocrisy, living in distortion, can I admit to, accountability and all this stuff. Humble, 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 humble. And yes, being humble is a good characteristic, but she ain't that. Okay, she doesn't possess any of that. She possesses something, but it certainly isn't humbleness. The fact that she's on here, not only I can say preaching, but selling this is wild to me.
Those kind of choices, those truthful choices, will create a foundation inside whoever uses their choices in that direction. You will have a very strong, sturdy foundation. And so I am inviting you, everyone who's listening to this, to really scrutinize their choices. You want to help a child, or you want to help a teenager develop love for themselves and love for others, insist and boundary that they make choices in truth. That's what needs to happen for anyone. Doesn't matter what age they are. You cannot buy their self-esteem. You can't tell them you love them in so many ways, and then all of a sudden they feel like they have worth. It will only create more dissonance from the actual thing that reminds them of their worth, which is God, which is truth.
Thank you. First of all, I literally felt like we just walked through verbally an algebra problem, right? That I was like, what? These are the key things I took from that. Number one, and don't give somebody love. They might actually feel worthy of something. God forbid, right? Heaven forbid that someone do that, especially with their child. Then in the beginning where she was talking about that thing with kids and show them create boundary and truth and this and that, showing them love. This is where she tells on herself, right? And Ruby as well, but specifically here. And this giving agency and permission to, in my opinion, bully your children, abuse your children, cause harm to them through the lens of, this is love, I'm helping. And it's like, no, what y'all were doing, making a kid go out in 120-degree weather and dig ditches until they pass out and starve, that's not called love, okay? That's a reason why you're in prison for this. But you see how it's very simplistic here. It's this almost this vibe of tough love. You gotta be the one to set that boundary and take that phone away. But you see where we went from that to the digging ditches on 120-degree weather with, hot sauce and open wounds and all the horrifying demonic stuff these two people were doing, right? It's interesting and also heartbreaking to see the trajectory of that. How this is the entry point for victims here. This is one of the entry points, right? This is where we get them. We put a little bow on it and it sounds like, okay, well, Jody said it. Okay, right? So, but yeah, let's continue.
So this mom is awake. She recognizes that her son is sending out smoke signals saying, I need help, I'm in trouble. And I hope, Mom, that you will do what is in truth for your son, recognizing that he is telling you that he needs support in his ability to make choices in truth.
Okay. Remember how I told you about the ask and all this type of stuff? So look at the beginning of what she did just now. She's gassing this mom up, right? Mom, you did a really great job there. You're really on the way, bucko. Let's keep going. We're almost there.
So my hunch is that you have a bigger issue than the phone here. And when I say bigger issue, I don't mean, well, I do mean there's other things going on rather than the phone. The big issue is that your son doesn't know who he is. That's the core issue. That's the foundational issue. And allowing him to engage and look like everybody else and talk like everybody else and have the same things that everybody else has is not going to do anything for his self-esteem. And in fact, it's going to erode his self-esteem because he's using those things irresponsibly.
Okay, so second part of the ask. First part is gas the mom up. Second part is, but don't get too confident. Your son is really bad off. There's deep issues going on here that could lead to the erosion of your child. This is going on, this is probably going on, this and this. The devil has come into your home and has his grip on your boy. Now, what could we do to solve this? Well, let's just see what Jody has to say.
So if someone's in distortion, which means they're using their choices to be dishonest, to be irresponsible, to lie, to manipulate, to threaten, to be aggressive, to be entitled, all those things that make up distortion, when someone is using their agency to choose that, especially if it's a kid, and I say especially because somebody can intervene.
Okay, so first of all, she then takes us down into the distortion thing. Number one, all the stuff she just described is stuff she herself is doing, right? She is so far down distortion, but notice at the very end too where she tells herself and she says, especially a kid, because someone can intervene. This again gives you insight into their viewpoint on children, where they are just things to them, right? That they can control and manipulate and do all this kind of stuff too.
When there's a kid doing that, they need adults around them to intervene so that they can start practicing using their choices in truth. So what your child is telling you is take away the things that are distracting to me, take away the things that I can't manage, and allow me to just practice with the stuff that I can manage, like get him an alarm clock and see if he's willing to wake up on time, see if he's willing to make his bed, see if he's willing to clean up his space, see if he's willing to clean up the bathroom and the family places, the family home. See if he's willing to be friends to his siblings and to you before he goes off with other friends.
So herein starts her whole thing. And again, look at it through the lens of what we know. Look at what they were doing to the kids at the very end, right? Every piece of dignity, of humanness, of basic human needs and rights were taken away from them. Okay. You do this kind of stuff with a 14, 13 kid, and y'all, many of you probably know, if you didn't live through it yourself, you lived through it with your kids, whatever, right? It's just the nature of being a child, the parent-child relationship. But you hear with this right here, oh, no, this is something, she's aligning the behavior with something like demonic and biblical almost, right? Is how I interpret it. And then it's the take away, take away, take away, take away, do this, do this. They're just going to rebel more. Instead of, it's like a jailer relationship, right? But I would almost say even more than that.
Those are the ways that you can practice with your kids. If you have an adult that's behaving this way, then be a loving friend to them and go to them and say, friend or son or daughter or whoever you are, even though you're an adult, I'm concerned about you. I see your choices and they're very destructive. You are not making choices in truth. So how can I best support you? You
know what that part's giving? It's giving the whole Lori Daybell, Melanie Gibb, Sue Limba, like that way that they were always trying to outdo one another on those phone calls and stuff. To be like, look, you're really living in distortion, Lori. I feel like I need to minister to you for a minute. You know what I mean? Like that kind of right there. Because like this is what they're talking about here. I'm like, girl. Like it would be one, like imagine Jody or Ruby coming to you and saying that. especially what we know now, but even before, you know, they would be so smarmy and just so toxic about it. Like, they would not be in the least bit adult or mature about it at all. Yet we have just listened to almost like a 20 or 30 minute podcast from her telling us how to do, to be those things that she herself isn't even capable of, or willing, maybe I should say.
Thank you for your question, and hopefully we'll see you in the Empowering Joy class. That would be very helpful to get your son and any of your other kids into Empowering Joy. Just get on the website, connectionsclassroom.com, and look for the Learn button, click it, and Empowering Joy will drop down. Love to see you every Saturday. Take care. Bye-bye.
There we go. There's the ask. Sign up for the class. So what did we see here? We've identified the problem. We've told you what it is. We've gassed you up a little bit. And then we went out to, even though you're good, Mom, you recognize this, you've got serious problems. And here's a little tasting of what you can do to solve that. But you really need to take this class. Now, here's the thing. Imagine someone listening to this and they're like, oh my God, Julie, my question got picked on the connections thing. Oh my God, girl, go listen to it, right? My guess is this. My guess is that Jody would get these questions from people that she was trying to grift or get to sign up. But like, she probably knew this person. And so it was a little bit of like Jody manipulating and gassing them up and doing this type thing. And then going in for the, okay, well, here's this. So let me kind of rewind here with that. Take that and put it over here. So Matt and I were watching this docu-series, and it's some TV show where each episode's about like a different cult. It's somebody who escaped it. It might have even been I escaped a cult, whatever, I don't know. Don't even know what thing it's on right now. So the one we watched was like this girl who was describing the scenario where almost imagine like if your church bought up 2 blocks and everyone in the church, the preacher, all this lived on these 2 blocks. It wasn't like gated off, but it's just like that was your zone. Well, at, say age 8 or 9, you move into the preacher's house. By 13, you're one of his wives. You do the math on this, right? So then at one point she was talking about where she started to rebel, and she was like, my dad came down from their house and gave her the beating of her life. And I was like, what? Hold on. Your parents knew because I was like, where are the parents in this? Oh, they put her with the preacher, right? Long story short, what I'm getting at, if you've got cults out there that will gladly have parents convincing them to hand their children over to these demonic men, in some cases women, how hard do you think it is for Jody to sit here and gas someone up to get them to pay for her courses? And then what do you think the most logical thing to do if you want to be a part of this group, something we've listened to and talked against this whole time, to be part of this group and part of this, you're going to keep finding issues with your family and your kids and your husband. So you can keep getting the accolades, so you can be part of the group, so you can do all these things. The very thing that Jody has sat here and told us, adults shouldn't do this and kids shouldn't even do this and you need to do that, right? She is creating this environment with this, because I can guarantee you this is probably exactly how this went. Like, oh Lord, yes. Oh, you're not fixed yet, honey. We still got to go 3 different courses. You better start breaking some rules around here. You know what I'm saying? It's just how I see it playing out. Now, let's go listen to not the opposite, but like a different perspective on a different podcast. We're now going to listen to one of Ruby Franke's. So, here we go.
Hello, everyone. I am your host, Ruby Franke. Welcome to another episode of the Connections Podcast, where we help you create joy in your life and relationships. Start your training today at connectionsclassroom.com. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Connections Coaching, or join our private Facebook group, Moms of Truth with Jody and Ruby.
I'm sorry, but it's got me up and dancing, okay? I can't help it. I should be worried about myself. So you heard the intro, you heard this, we're listening to Ruby, let's keep going.
A mother writes in and says, hello. One of my dearest friends recommended this page to me. I like what I see. Good. Welcome. For some background, I have 3 children, 6 years old, 10 years old, and 16 years old. When I was young, I didn't grow up with my parents that much, so my auntie took care of me and my 2 brothers. As I got older, I promised my aunt that I would do anything in return. Now, Last Monday, my aunt called me talking about my cousin who has 2 daughters. I have met her and her daughters before, and I keep my distance because of religion and my views. Apparently, my cousin was going away for 10 months to Germany with her boyfriend, and they needed someone to watch their daughters. I was hesitant at first, but I have made that promise to my aunt. I was excited at first, but when I looked at one of her daughters, she has a tattoo, a stomach piercing, a nose ring. She also hung up a pride flag in the guest room. I don't know what to do.
Tattoos, nose ring or navel ring, pride flag, and the thing. Get the popcorn. You know this is getting ready to be good. Okay. Now here's the one thing with this. First of all, the way, so this is what I was talking about earlier. Remember when I was like, listen to how Jody talks versus Ruby? Ruby is literally like I was like, girl, just spit it out, right? Just get to the point. Like, you're going on and on. Like, we get it. Just read it. Jody is more direct, more confident, more, this is what this is. So, synopsis is, this woman, I almost don't believe this personally, right? Because it's so bizarre to me. Where I'm like, so this woman's writing in, she feels indebted to her aunt. Her cousin has 2 kids. The cousin's going to Germany for 10 months and wants to leave the kids. Like, literally for almost a year. I do have questions about that, for sure. Then I guess it's like, okay, the kids, so one's a little rebellious. Okay, let's see where this is going.
Me and my husband do not approve of this. What should I tell her? I am desperate. Okay, so this mother has quite a bit going on. She has her own 3 children that she is responsible for. She has a 6-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 16-year-old. And she's in a position where she has a spouse, and she has already made the decision that she has put distance between her and her cousin for she says, because of my views and because of her religious views. And she has this conundrum where she's made a promise to her aunt that she would do anything to pay her back to say thank you, because this aunt came in at a time in her life where she needed someone safe. She needed an adult in her life. And she sounds like she's really, really grateful that this aunt stepped in when her mother was not responsible, or her father was not responsible, or they died. Somewhere, or for some reason, and she doesn't say, she didn't have parents around.
We 100% got that on the first go round. Okay. Didn't need all that. Absolutely not. My body has rejected it, but whatever. Let's keep going.
So bringing this to principles, there is honesty, responsibility, and humility. And you have got to know where your responsibilities lie first, and then to see what you can handle after. So you're responsible for your 3 daughters. You are responsible for providing your 3 daughters with an environment that you choose. You as the mother and your husband as the father, it is your obligation and duty to choose the environment in which you raise your family. And you get to decide what comes in the walls. You get to decide what comes in the doors. That's up to you.
Mind you, this is the mom of the year who was banging Jody in her daughter's bed while the husband was shunned and kids were shunned out of the house, okay? That's the palette we're working with here, okay? So, yeah, not buying this. And this is what Sherry's talking about in her book. Her daughter, Sherry Franke, who wrote the book, as well as we saw in the documentary, where this is what they're spouting out, because these 2 podcasts are towards the end, okay? They're spouting out this BS. Like I said, they're doing the whatever in the bedroom. They've got kids barely hanging on to life. But they're going to sit here talking about it's your responsibility as the mom and the dad. Are you kidding me? And I guess, like, too, it's like, well, if there's some level of normalcy to this, I could understand. But, like, my whole thing with this is, how could they sit there and say this while all this was going on at their house. But that, to me, that just goes into the narcissism and the otherness and the we're not that, we're better than, right? We are whatever it is they thought they were.
And so if you decide, you know what, in our home, we're not going to have dogs and cats and snakes and birds and gerbils and pets and fish, like that's your right as a mother to decide that. So you get to decide, hey, you know, if someone I really like, someone I really love and respect and honor is coming over and they're bringing their dog, I have a right, and a right is synonymous with responsibility. Our world has done a real bang-up job of changing the definition of what right means.
Again, look at the definition that she would have you believe of what right is. And again, the basis of what she's talking about, which is essentially like, hey, this is my house, my rules type energy. Got it, right? This is the last person that needs to be trying to teach other people this, is what I'm getting at.
The world tells you today that right means an entitlement. Well, in truth, a right is a responsibility. So you have the right, you have the responsibility to decide who comes in your home. I'll give you an example. You get to decide your dress code in your home. I have a hot tub in my backyard, and because it's in my home and it's on my property and I paid for it, it's under my jurisdiction. I have stewardship over that hot tub. And so I get to decide the types of bathing suits people wear when they're in that hot tub. I don't get to go to the city pool and decide that. I don't get to walk around and say, that's not appropriate. I don't want that swimming suit. I don't get to do that because it's public property. It's a public pool. I do get to decide what comes into my home. And I have decided there's no bikinis. And so if someone comes over with a bikini, they are invited to put on something else or to leave.
100% she would be the one at a public pool to go up and harass somebody. Number one, right? Number two, remember, and I don't know the exact name of this, but remember when her and Jody, I don't know if both at the same time or whatever, but one of the punishments was to take the two victims, aka Ruby's children, to that grave near Jody's house, the graveyard or whatever, and they were making them clean it like these ungodly heat, hours of the day when the heat's out. And that woman was recording it, and she's like, hey, this is essentially like either sacred ground or something, or private property, something like that. She's like, you can't do that. And Ruby's like, well, they should be thankful that we're doing this, and blah, 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 blah. And then she's over here talking about, well, this is my hot tub and my this. Can you imagine what Ruby would have done? Like, imagine if she had her and Kevin went away and they came home, one of the teenagers had a party. There's a bunch of teenagers around drinking, like in bathing suits in the hot tub. Oh, honey, she would have, I'm talking imploded, okay? She wouldn't have survived the event.
I have a reputation now that people understand what I expect, and so they don't walk over that boundary.
Yeah, we've heard from your neighbors, honey, right? They literally were all like, glad to see you go, okay?
You're not responsible to pay back your aunt. And I know that might be really confusing to you, and maybe it hurts to hear me say that, or maybe you are cringing at hearing me say that. The best way for you to pay back is not to pay it back to your aunt, but to pay back to God, who provided you with someone safe. And the way you do that is you yourself become safe. I will be a safe place for anybody to come to.
Did we all hear that? She's going to be a safe place for anybody to come to? No, honey. No, we see how that ended. The level of delusion is staggering with these two, okay?
If someone wants to come to me and enjoy my safety, I will offer my love to them. And to come into my home, I need to maintain that love which means I need to maintain the embracement of principles, because love is not a feeling. Love is not hey, everyone's welcome to come in. Love is not acceptance of everyone's values. It's not. Love does not accept and condone and embrace distortion.
She and Jody should never wonder why their kids and family do not talk to her. Okay. Never should, absolutely never even question this. This is the thing too, listening to them talk. I mean, they're so far gone down the rabbit hole of like their, whatever you call this, narcissism, queens of their little world, what, I don't know. Okay. But like, this is so crazy, but then you also have to sit here and stop and say, who is she really talking about? Because I think most of this stuff will relate back to them. And I'm sure some of it's like, you know, back with Sherry, just looking at what she's even talking about, you know, this whole thing about love and the withholding of love, and everything was so serious and so intense, but also so evil and so lesson driven, and you were never going to make them happy, because I think at the end of the day, this was their world. By their, I mean Ruby and Jody. This was their world. This is what they enjoyed. They didn't want the kids to learn. They didn't want this and that. The power and all that relied on having victims, because they literally thought that they were writing like the next Bible, okay, like with these punishments and all this crazy stuff. I mean, it's insane.
You can love your nieces or your cousins or your cousins' daughters. You can love them and hold boundaries. You could say something like, I am not available to have someone come into my home who doesn't live by the same standards that I live by. And here's what I can do. I would like to offer your daughter this class, the Empowering Joy class. That's what I can do. You can offer feedback. I'm not open to watching children where the mother goes to Europe for 10 months with the boyfriend. That's irresponsible. You would be embedding and endorsing irresponsibility.
Now, look, even if this is real, we can all have our opinions on the person who's like, I'm going to Germany for 10 months, take the kids, right? I mean, like, we don't know the story behind this or what's up with it. I can literally, the most truthful thing of this is I can literally hear Ruby saying to somebody if this was real, yeah, I'm not down with watching the type person who goes to Germany and leaves their kids for 10 months, okay? Yeah, we're not operating on that level of distortion over here, okay? Just letting you know. I can 100% see that. You know, and again, like just specifically with this, where she's like, you know, you can hold space and you can do this and you can create these boundaries. I mean, this is all true, right? But also like, you know, I don't want someone here that doesn't hold the same values as me in the household. Can you imagine what people would have said if they saw what was going on in her household? This is like the disconnectedness, right? That it's just like, girl, you're in prison. Now, I know she didn't make this show after, you know, prison or whatever, but it's like, you're in prison for the behaviors that you're doing. You're recording this while these are going on. Your neighbors are insanely and you're worried about your children's safety. And yet you're over here spouting out who can and can't wear, you know, what do you call it? The thing, the two-piece, whatever you call it. I don't know what, bikini. Good Lord. I wonder what she would do if Kevin busted out with a banana hammock at the hot tub. She'd probably just fall down in disbelief.
For a mother to leave her children for 10 months to go to Europe with a boyfriend? There's all sorts of responsibility being dropped in that situation. And you would not be helping by saying, I'm okay with it, and having her children come into your home. That's what I'm honing in on. I'm not looking at the tattoos and the piercings. All of that could be indicative of rebellious behavior. I don't know. I don't know the story behind why she did that and where she is today. What I'm looking at is where the mother is today. The mother is in a place where she's saying, it's okay for me to live with my boyfriend. It's okay for me to go to Europe for 10 months. It's okay for me to let go of my daughters.
Ruby's like, This is so broken. Ruby's like, I can't even get to the judgmental part about the tattoos and the piercings. Like, I can't even get to that point to judge, because trust me, she would. She's like, I can't move past this. But look at how not only has she said, so here's what, okay, if we want to talk specifically about this issue here, like, at the end of the day, I would basically be like this. Look, girl, you can do something else for your aunt. If this is that against your thing in 10 months, that is a long time. I get that. Whatever the case may be, right? You can sit here and just be like, you know what? It's not going to be good for the family right now. Is there something else I could do to help? And leave it at that. But Ruby's wanting to change it around to a, well, let me posture myself as better than, make these people feel bad about themselves, right? Because it's essentially what she does. She works in the world of making others feel bad about themselves. Okay, you can sit here and hold this judgment all you want. Again, these justifications, and of course, we don't know if this is real or if the person would go and actually say this, but I think Ruby 100% would say this, right? I mean, she would absolutely say that she has that brazenness and the entitledness to tell someone this to their face and try and make them feel horrible.
And leave them with someone I don't know anything about. Why would the mother do that? You've been keeping your distance from this cousin. So the cousin doesn't know you. Why is she okay dropping her daughters off at your home for 10 months? That is a huge red flag. Huge flag. This mother is not interested in being responsible for her children.
Again, she's going to criticize this mother and her choices, and look at what she was doing to her own kids. Kids not talking to them anymore, kicking them out, having them live on their own under age 18, and then obviously the atrocities that we saw done to the two youngest ones.
And you're going to expose them to your 10-year-old, your 6-year-old, your 16-year-old? That is just asking for drama. So again, if you can separate where your responsibility really is, it's going to feel like a load off of your shoulders. And you're responsible for you, and you're responsible to teach your daughters to become women who embrace character, who embrace principles, who live truthful, who are strong, who are willing to stand up, who are willing to take a stand. You want empowered girls. And so you get to start by being empowered yourself. I hope this feedback gives you some room to give yourself some permission, that paying back doesn't have to look and be dictated the way the aunt says or the way your cousin says. You get to dictate. You get to decide what paying back, that gratitude, looks like.
Okay, biggest thing from that clip, talking about you should empower daughters and women and strong women. Yet, when her own daughter exhibited these signs, because you want to ask me, Sherry, at the time that this was going on, was the most mature, level-headed human in that house, okay? When her own daughter did this, she not only threw her out of the family, turned the whole family against her, but punished her, taking her off health insurance, car insurance, this and that, and turning the brothers and sisters, the own father, against her, okay? Yet is sitting in the other room talking about this. This is the part where I'm just like, the hypocrisy with this case, and by the case I mean Jody and Ruby and their actions and what they were out there promoting and pushing, that is mind-boggling and so frustrating and so angry about this case, right? So, dying to know, what do you think? Let me know in the comment section. If you want me to keep doing some of these, like react to them and whatnot, because it's borderline rage bait, let's be honest, right? Let's just call it what it is, okay? But let me know down in the comment section. And while you are in that comment section, if you could please drop some little sofas off for Rosco and Spirit, Bo and Luke, and the rest of the Sofa Squad. We need a place to sit down and talk about Ruby and Casey and all these crazy cases we do talk about here at the Sofa Squad. And until we all meander on down there and hang out on those sofas, I'll see y'all soon. I want to shout out Hungryroot again for making this video possible. Be sure and check them out. All their stuff's in the description box below. I just wanted to say thank you again for watching the whole video, and also thank you for being part of the Sofa Squad. Special thanks to all the Patreon members, channel members from both of my channels, everybody who likes, shares, subscribes, comments in the comment sections. It helps the channel out so much. Now don't forget, I do have that other channel, the podcast channel. That's where we go live, we hang out, we talk. We have kind of sort of a schedule, but just be sure and check it out. I'll put it up here on the screen. And then, like I said in the beginning of the video, if you want to follow me and Rosco on the Instagram, go on, check it out. It's right here on the screen again. But once again, thank you very much. I really appreciate you being part of the Sofa Squad, and I'll see you in the next video.